In the silent, concrete depths of a Berlin bunker, in April 1945, a man took his last breath. He left behind a world in ruins, but he also left behind a staggering secret fortune. It is estimated that he possessed over 700 million Reichmarks, a sum that in today's world would exceed $5 billion. But the mystery lies not just in the money, but in where it began. The man who became one of the wealthiest figures in Europe started his journey as a ghost in the shadows, a homeless wanderer sleeping on the frozen streets of Vienna, selling cheap postcards just to buy a single meal. How did a failed artist, rejected twice by the Academy of Fine Arts, transform into one of the richest men to ever live? And more importantly, where did all those millions go when the cannons fell silent? Did the gold vanish into Swiss vaults, or was it swallowed by the chaos of war? Before we unveil these startling secrets, I invite you to settle into your pillows. Take a deep breath and tell us in the comments, where are you listening tonight? Whether you are in Riyadh, Cairo, London, or New York, we love knowing who is traveling through history with us. Now, let us drift back to the year 1889. The early years. Adolf was born in a small Austrian town called Braunau am Inn. His father, Alois, was a stern customs official. The family was comfortable, not rich, but stable. Young Adolf had only one dream: to become a world-renowned artist. He spent hours sketching the old buildings and the rolling landscapes of his home. But his father wanted a different life for him. He wanted a respectable government clerk. This tension filled their home with a cold silence. In 1907, the young dreamer moved to Vienna, the heart of European culture. He was certain of his genius, but the Academy of Fine Arts saw things differently. They rejected him, not once, but twice. They told him he lacked talent. They told him he had no future. The descent into poverty. Suddenly, he was stranded, without a plan, without money. He lived on a tiny orphan's pension, barely enough for a crust of bread. Slowly, he slid into the abyss of true poverty. He slept in crowded, dark shelters for the homeless, surrounded by the smell of sweat and despair. In the bitter winter mornings, he walked for hours, carrying a small bag of hand-painted postcards. Many days he sold nothing. To survive, he shoveled snow from the streets and carried heavy luggage for travelers at the train station. It was in these dark rooms, filled with the outcasts of society, that his mind began to change. He began to absorb the radical, bitter politics of the time. He blamed his failure, his hunger, and his misery on the world around him. The fortune, Mein Kampf. The turning point came not from art, but from a book. After a failed coup in 1923, he was sent to Landsberg prison. There he dictated his manifesto, Mein Kampf, My Struggle. At first it was a failure. It sat on dusty shelves, ignored by the public. But then the Great Depression of 1929 hit. The German economy collapsed. People lost everything. In their desperation, they turned to the radical promises in his book. By 1933, Mein Kampf wasn't just a book, it was a mandatory requirement. New couples were given copies at their weddings. Schools forced students to read it. Millions of copies were sold. By 1939, he was earning millions in royalties, tax-free. The corruption and the luxury. As his power grew, so did his greed. He ordered the tax office to simply delete his debts. While the German people suffered through rations and war, he lived in a mountain palace called the Berghof. He commissioned the Eagle's Nest, a dramatic retreat built into a mountain peak, accessible only by a gold-plated elevator. He became obsessed with art, the same art that once rejected him. His agents scoured Europe, often stealing priceless masterpieces from Jewish collectors and conquered museums. By the end of the war, his wealth was a sprawling web of secret accounts, stolen gold, and hidden villas. Much of it was protected by the legendary secrecy of Swiss banks. When the end came, his empire of stolen millions vanished into the fog of history. Some say the gold was shipped to South America in U-boats. Others believe it still sits in forgotten vaults, waiting to be found. But the true legacy was not the gold. It was a warning that absolute power leads to absolute corruption, that the man who claimed to serve the people was in fact stealing from them until the last hour. His fortune, built on shadows and sorrow, turned to ash. As you drift off to sleep, remember that history is a mirror. It shows us the best of us and the darkest parts of our past. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this journey, please subscribe and join us for our next story. Sleep well and let the echoes of history fade into the night.